So not to necessarily start by making a comment about the weather, but I did hear that it's going to be about in the 50s or 60s this next week. I'm a little excited. I liked the snow and a little bit of snowboarding, but I think the warmer weather, I'm even really kind of ready for this fresh change. It's kind of amazing, is it? Just this reality of new weather, a few subtle change in degrees, really. And I could just bring such a, new life and kind of inner transformation, to ourselves, just kind of looking at things in a new way. And with the spring, we know comes all sorts of things, sharpening the mower blades, getting the grill out and ready and prepared, seeing what plants and flowers we want to be putting in the garden or around the house. And then traditionally, it's a time for cleaning out the house maybe a little bit. Time for some spring cleaning. And why do we do spring cleaning? Well, I think, after the cold and darkness and lifelessness of the winter time, I think we do want to invite, something of a fresh start, a new life. And we know that kind of comes first with our homes. And no matter how much we may desire or disdain the suffering or inconvenience of cleaning, maybe kids, maybe a little more than adults, we know that it's something that we do really desire deep down, at least maybe the result of cleaning. And undeniably, all of our houses at one point or another need cleaning. No matter how much we kind of keep up with the dust and arrange things every day, we all need a deep cleaning every once in a while. In our gospel today, we hear about sort of a house cleaning, Jesus cleansing the temple. And I think it can have some maybe profound spiritual truths for us today. That in truly, no matter how we desire, warmer weather, this new season, no matter how much we desire, a clean home, our God has infinitely more desire for our souls to be cleansed and for our conversion, for now and for all of eternity. So I think the question is, where does Jesus want to come into our life, into our temple, and do some cleaning? Not just, a sense of a little bit of dusting and moving some pictures around, but a deep, deep cleaning. And if we're honest with ourselves, we know we all need that one place or another. But before talking about the temple, I want to go to the garden. So the Genesis stories, the first book of the Bible, the first two stories of creation, really tell us deeply about who we are as human beings. And as we hear in Genesis, there's this garden, the Garden of Eden. And it's the state of our original creation, essentially how things were meant to be. And as we hear in the stories, things were created good. Human beings were created very good. And John Paul II, in his Theology of the Body, that we've talked about a little bit, he said that, and reflecting on Genesis, it's like this Eden, this place was our place of original happiness, or original holiness. That everything in the garden was kind of properly aligned and in right relationship. That it was God, and then it was man, and it was creation. And in the garden, there was no competition. There was no sin. There was no hatred. Only love and a certain sense of innocence. This kind of makes sense when we hear Jesus talking about the line, be like, only the childlike will be able to enter the kingdom of heaven. He's referring to this original state which we were created. But we know, the garden everything didn't stay all calm and perfect, in the garden. We hear of the fall, this event of the infamous eating of the apple. Okay, well, why does eating the apple, why did that really matter? What does it really mean? Well, it meant that our original relationship with God was severed or reconfigured. That it was not God first, but me first. And the serpent kind of sowed the temptation or the thought that, God can't be trusted with your happiness. So in a sense, through the fall, we learned to grasp for things and to kind of put ourselves over and above God. And so if our relationship with God is severed, that means that our relationship with other human beings and the rest of creation is severed and reconfigured. This Lent, hopefully we've taken a little bit of time to look at the sin in our lives. And not out of a sense of shame or accusation, but out of a sense of really desiring to grow in holiness that God has called us to. And on this journey, maybe we've heard about the 7 deadly sins, or the 7 ways that we kind of fall into prioritizing ourselves kind of over everyone and everything, including God. Or they're kind of like, the 7 ways that, clutter seems to start building up in our hearts. So I just want to outline them just very briefly, for us, these 7 deadly sins. First, pride. An excessive love of self, or an unhealthy self-importance. Avarice, or greed, the excessive desire and love for possessions. Not that things are bad, but we can end up living for them in an unhealthy way. Envy, the excessive desire for possessions, happiness, talents, or abilities of another. To not really be grateful, for what we have been given in life. Wrath, the uncontrolled feelings of anger or hatred. So certainly we can't help ourselves from feeling angry, but we can choose to dwell on anger. We can allow that anger, to come out of us in maybe not so great ways. Lust, the intense desire for created things. Not just, sexual pleasure, but money, fame, power. And a focus on them in the sense that we believe that these things are going to bring about our ultimate happiness. Gluttony, which is overconsumption. Not just, food and drink. It could be anything. Netflix, just entertainment, anything we really spend so much of our time doing. And then lastly, sloth. So kind of maybe physical laziness at different times, but it also could be, kind of a spiritual laziness. Kind of neglecting our spiritual growth and our holiness. These are the main ways, because of the fall, that our human nature tends to fall into putting a bit of clutter into our lives, of putting ourselves before God and others. So now to the temple, to our gospel story. Jesus comes in and he sees a certain amount of kind of desecration in the temple. He sees some things going on. And I think it's important to realize the absolute significance of the temple for the Jewish people. It was the way of connection with God. It was how you lived your faith in a very real way. Because they went to the temple to offer sacrifice, something that was super important. So in the sense that God dwelt in this temple, and God was present to his people through it. So in this most important and sacred of places, Jesus comes in, and what does he see? He sees a lot of clutter. He sees a lot of mess. He sees, human endeavors and interests kind of being prioritized over God. And it's not exactly surprising to him either. The scriptures say, he doesn't need anyone to testify about human nature. He himself understood it well. That yes, Jesus, because he was God, never sinned and could never sin. He knew what the pull of temptation, of sin was like, of putting himself before others. And Jesus knows that, we are weak, we are fallen. But he doesn't allow this fact, to keep his insatiable desire to clean our hearts and our temples from coming forth. And ultimately, he showed us, through the cross, that Jesus was willing to go to any length to bring about this inner transformation, this inner cleansing for our life and our souls. So no matter how much we desire, maybe warmer weather and a clean house, God has infinitely more desire for our conversion and the cleansing of our own souls. So what is cluttering the temple? What is maybe one or two of these deadly sins that have taken up space? If we maybe look around a little bit inside of us, where do we need a little bit of a house cleansing? God's grace that brings about conversion in our lives. Because the truth is, each and every one of us needs conversion. No matter where we've encountered it in our lives, whether or not we feel like we've experienced conversion, we've all been created for it. It is this inner reality that we experience of God's love that leaves us breathless and sends us on a new trajectory in life. And lastly, if we're talking about house cleaning, it's important to ask, who is doing this house cleaning? And it is Jesus. That our faith isn't just a religion of self-help, but it's a faith of God bringing transformation to our lives. And it first starts not with us, but with Him. And so that's why we're here today in this place, to practice our duty of giving God praise and worship, of offering Him our lives and our hearts. Yes, our hearts that are cluttered and messy with our own self-importance, our own self-priority, our own sin. But we come here too to allow our hearts to be transformed by God, to receive His grace, and we do that in no greater way than our receiving of the Eucharist. That the Eucharist, the body and blood, soul of Jesus, if we're receiving that in faith, in openness, is a redemptive act. One that helps us to regain the original holiness and the original happiness that we were created for. So come, Lord Jesus, and cleanse our temples here in this place so that we can give you right worship with the whole of our lives and hearts, that both being cleansed and transformed by the gift of your grace within us, we shall rejoice with you in heaven forever.